I was on the phone with a 13-year-old last night who had something really scary happen to him yesterday afternoon. And his dad was at work. His stepmom was seemed like she was mad at him. And, he told me this whole story of something that he had gone on. And I kind of said, thanks for sharing. And I said something like, do you want to keep talking about it, or do you want like some advice? And he said, no, I just, I wanted to have, it's just nice to have somebody to talk to that I could trust. He knows to have somebody I can trust to talk to will make a big difference.
Welcome to the Don't Change Much podcast. I am your host, Dan Murphy. And our guest today is Jonathon Reed from NextGen Men. NextGen Men is a nonprofit organization with an ambitious goal to build a future where boys and men experience less pain. As director of programs, Jonathon is an educator, a researcher, and an advocate who guides conversations with youth in classrooms and wilderness expeditions alike. He's passionate about supporting boys' well-being and challenging gender-based violence, where boys themselves are often the first victims. It's frontline work that emphasizes boys aren't broken and men aren't toxic. It takes strength to knock someone down, just as it does to lift them up.
And when I look back on where that passion came from for me, it's, I guess, to be a little vulnerable in sharing that. It has to do with an identity for me as a survivor. In that when I was a young kid, I had long blonde hair and I was really small. And I did things like dance and I did cheerleading. And so I faced homophobic bullying every single day in middle school. And I'm not unaware of the fact that not every kid who faces that level of cruelty from their peers makes it through. I'm thinking as deeply and as like carefully as I can about how to support boys, protect them, help them be true to themselves and cared for by the people around them, because I know firsthand how much that matters. And my question then was, if you're LeBron James, if you're a professional athlete and you're injured, like, why do you keep that to yourself? Why don't you tell anybody? Because he didn't, right? He didn't tell me. He didn't tell any other teams like that he was injured. And they'll say, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be the center of attention. I want everyone to know that I screwed up, and so on and so on. And then from there, the conversation can then be, okay, what about if you're a young teenage boy, right? Who's struggling with a mental health challenge or stress or grief or something like that? Why might you keep that to yourself? And the answers are often quite similar. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want to be the center of everyone's attention. I don't want to let people down, right? And so on. And what we've done is get to that place, that more vulnerable spot, which is often quite unfamiliar territory, but we walked through an entry point together where boys do feel comfortable, because they might think mental health is not for me. This conversation is not relevant to me. It's not true, right? Of course it's not true, but they need some sort of guidance into how to enter into that conversation in a way that feels safe and approachable for them. The quality itself of strength is not harmful or positive. It's not toxic or good. Like, there's nothing, it's just strength. And that being said, if you know as a young man you want to prove yourself to be strong, you can do that in all kinds of ways. Like, it does take strength to dominate somebody else, to knock them into the dirt. That takes strength. It's true. It also takes strength to lift somebody up and to hold them. That takes strength as well. And so what we'll often do when we start talking about, okay, what does positive masculinity mean to you, is give boys a whole bunch of options. And some of them are well within the stereotype. There's strength, confidence, determination. And some of them are way outside of the stereotype. There's gentleness and sensitivity and being loving. And so we'll offer boys all of these different qualities, and then we'll engage them in sort of reflection on what does it look like to put these qualities that you care about into practice for yourself as a young man. And one of the things that she noticed is these boys at age 11, age 12 are completely expressive about how much their relationships mean. So they'll say, I couldn't live without my best friend. He's my heart. He's everything. And it's this beautiful, like, it's this loving language. They really don't guard any of that. And those same boys 5 years later are much more guarded and much more, I guess, dismissive of the importance of so the same boy who said, I would lose my mind, like my mental health would tank. I would kill myself if I didn't have my best friend. That same boy 5 years later, he's like, no, I'm fine. I'm not gay. We hang out, but we don't talk much. And there's this guardedness, dismissiveness, but also like I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but like there's a sense of like, I've given up. I got betrayed a couple times, priorities shifted, and I've lost what I knew was so important to me back then. And so I think if boys experience being held in trusting, authentic relationships, particularly by male role models, but really by anybody, that will help them remain grounded to how much that matters. And we know that relationships are critical for mental health and well-being. It's really easy to get into this mindset of, I've seen this before. I know what the answer is. I know what the right thing is to do. And I'm going to tell you. And for example, I had a kid call me he'd been locked into a locker at school. I've never been locked into a locker before, but I have, as I sort of explained, I faced physical bullying. I know what that feels like. And so I'm like, I know what you need to do. Like, call your dad, call the school, like bang on the locker. And I started problem solving for him and telling him exactly what to do. And he interrupted me and he swore at me. And he was like, I didn't call you because I needed advice. I know what I have to do. I called you because I wanted someone to talk to. And that for me was a moment where I had to remind myself, my job here is not to solve problems. My job here is not to come up with the answers, but my job here is to listen, right? And to ask questions. And so I think for adults who are witnessing boys like struggling with what does it mean to be a man today, who are struggling potentially with the pressures and expectations of not just manhood, but also just school or athletics or relationships, the most valuable thing we can do is just ask questions and be authentically curious. There's so much to learn from boys, and in engaging in genuine conversation, it's not just that there's new possibilities open for them. I think there's new possibilities open for us.